anybody wants to hear it later, if you really want to hear it. It is a unique privilege to be able to say a few words. So Ari actually asked me, he didn't say give a Hesped, he said give a shir. Now, of course, the shir will include some different Hesped, but it's primarily a shir, which I think relates to, if you will, a lot of David's personality, his character, which is the main point of any Hesped. But there'll be a few personal thoughts. But I just wanted to start with the following personal thought. Almost exactly 31 years ago, David was the president of Montefiore Synagogue in Lowell, and I was, of course, the rabbi then. And David, I think, was president for about the past 10 years. Before that, I don't know exactly how long he was president for. But I came to him before Shoshana 31 years ago because at that point, I knew that there was shortly going to be an official election in Jamaica States, and I would probably be leaving. And I came to David because I felt it was important to tell him personally before the word got out. And I don't think the word got out really for maybe till the end of October, November. But I still came to him. I met with him personally, actually in the shul, and he was 100% gracious. And, you know, he could have made me feel guilty. He could have made me feel, oh, good, thank God you're leaving. But he said all the right things. He said, we'll be missed. And he knows his best to my family, and he appreciated what we had accomplished together in Lowell for those years. And he wished me very well. And, you know, it brings tears to my eyes now. And many times I could say that I would have interactions with David that would bring tears to both our eyes, not tears of sadness, but tears of comradeship, of knowing that we are so in sync about many things. So those who might remember that my drushes typically about events related to personal events were often related to names. And Todros is not your very common name, but notwithstanding that, Todros is found actually in the Gemara in at least two places. And Todros is found in one place in the Gemara Yerushalmi, where he's known as Todros Harofe, and he's talking about anatomy. I'm not going to talk about that. But there's another place in the Gemara Pesachim Nun Gimel where actually it discusses someone who is there. It says Todos without the resh, and then the side commentaries say there's supposed to be a resh. It's actually Todros. Who is that Todros? So they're deciding who is the character of this Todros. Who was he? And in order to understand who he was, they brought the following story, a very well-known story, which we'll read in about 15 weeks, which will come out, and usually comes out in January, Parshas of Va'era, about the frogs. And Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, later on, much later on, time of Nebuchadnezzar, was threatened, and they were able to put themselves into a fiery furnace, give up their lives al Kiddush Hashem. And the Medrash asked, well, how is that possible that they could do that? And Todros says, in the Gemara, Todros says, well, it's because they took the example of the Tzvardeim, of the frogs, who were able to be Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, to jump into the ovens that were warm. And the Gemara discusses how you know the ovens were warm, not for now. But the main point here is that Todros understood what Mesiras Nefesh is about, and he was able to relate it, on the one hand, to the frogs in Egypt, to, of course, an inanimate and don't really have free choice per se. Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, who great men, and set a role model of Kiddush Hashem, of a type which we never hope we have to fulfill. But the Rambam, when he discusses the Hakalos of Kiddush Hashem, actually focuses attention not on the Kiddush Hashem of dying for Kiddush Hashem, but living a Kiddush Hashem, making sure that everything one does in one's life is Kiddush Hashem. And certainly that was one of the foci of David's everyday life, making sure that those who saw what he did, those who saw how he acted, would be able to say, there's a from Jew, and this is what God told him, and look how nicely he behaves. And that's the classic Rambam of what Kiddush Hashem is about. On Tuesday at the Levaya, there were several references to, not surprisingly, to David as the captain. And there were references to particular Gemara and Bava Basra relating to a captain. No one really talked about the Gemara there. They only quoted the phrase. And the phrase is, Oila l'sfina she'avda Karvanita. Woe unto the ship which has lost its captain or its helmsman. But there's more to that statement, and here's the beginning of the statement. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rabba Amar Rav, Oso Hayom Shenifta Avram Avinu. The day that Avram Avinu died, Min HaOlam, that day, meaning it didn't take any time for them to realize the loss that they had suffered. Sometimes you don't realize till later on what's missing. Sometimes you realize right away. Right away, they understood what was missing. And that was one of the things that was expressed on Tuesday by Ari and by Adina and by the grandchildren and by Jay, that right away the void of David's not being with us, even though he was not necessarily in great shape right before, notwithstanding that that loss was felt immediately by the family. Amdu kol gedolei umos olam. All the greats, all the kings of the nations of the world stood up. Beshura, they're going to be menachem avil. They're going to console the mourners. What do you say to console the mourners? I wouldn't say this, but this is what they said. Amru, they said, Oilo olam shava manhiga. Woe unto the world that has lost its manhig, its leader, the one who led them, because Avram Avinu, of course, led them to monotheism. Oilo l'sfina shavda karvanita. Woe unto the ship that has lost its captain. And of course, the question, which I'll answer later, but I'll leave it to you, you can ponder it while I'm talking, is why give two models? Isn't one model enough? Isn't it the same? The world has lost its leader, the ship has lost its captain. Isn't that the same thing? Obviously, there are two different things going on here. We'll come back to that. The Marsha has a beautiful comment on that. But what I'd like to comment on is, if you think about the characters of last week and this week, I would have thought of Noach as the captain of the ship. We don't know Avram ever being on a ship. Notwithstanding that, he's the captain. And there's a contrast drawn between Noach and Abraham, right at the beginning of Noach, but by Chazal over and over again. The main difference between Noach and Abraham was not generational, but rather what they were about. Noach was an ish tzaddik. He was what is probably known in the Hasidic world as a tzaddik in pelts. He wore his cloak, so to speak. He didn't do anything about the world. He didn't think that he could have an effect on other people. Ari, should it be louder? Do you hear me, Ari? Okay. Good, okay. But Noach essentially did nothing for his people. He built the Teva for 120 years. Someone would come up to him and say, what are you doing? I'm building an ark. God's going to destroy the world because you're all evil. What should we do? He didn't ever tell them, try this, try that, believe in God, look at the moon, look at the sun, look at the stars, the way Avram did. But Avram spent his whole life, from the time he was 3 years old, says the Rambam, from 3 to 40, he was trying to figure it out. Then from 40 to 75, he was going around the Middle East, converting people to monotheism. And 75, Lech Lecha Mecharan, he went to Eretz Canaan. But Noach is described as the flood is about to begin. He goes onto the ship, he goes onto the Teva, and Rashi says, Noach mikatane amana haya. He was of small faith. Well, 120 years building a Teva, because God said there's going to be a flood, to me is not a sign of small faith. Obviously, he believed what God told him 120 years, and now the flood's coming, but he's going on. But Chazal say he was a small faith. Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin. He believes and he doesn't believe. So the question is, what is it about his belief? So Kedushas Levi actually points out, what is it that he believed and didn't believe? He did not believe in himself. Hayakatan be'enav ma'od. He was small in his own eyes, and therefore he thought, I cannot have an effect on anyone else. He thought, I can't affect these people are not big enough. He didn't believe in them, and he didn't believe in himself, and therefore he could not succeed. On the other hand, Abraham understood from day one, created B'Tselem Elokim. Noach, after the flood, was told, we read it last week, that Hashem told him, Ki B'Tselem Elokim Asas Adam, because he didn't understand. Noach, all those years, didn't recognize we're all created in the image of God. And if we're all created in the image of God, it means we all have the potential to be great, to succeed. Noach didn't see it in himself. He didn't see it in others. Avraham saw it himself. Avraham saw it in others. And Avraham was able to bring thousands of people to monotheism. The main point here for me is not about the monotheism, but about Avraham understanding that he could accomplish something if only he set his mind to it. I want to read you read to you something which doesn't have to be read. You probably all know it by heart. For the American Declaration of Independence, there was some talk on Tuesday, and we know this very well, that David had a lot of loyalty. He had loyalty to Jewish people. He had loyalty to the state of Israel. He had loyalty to the American system of government in the United States of America, and to all those who fought for America and who fought for Israel, and policemen and so on. Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. They endow by their creator, etc., the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which in plain English for us is, or plain Hebrew is, B'Tselem Elokim. Everyone is created in the image of God, regardless of color, culture, class, or creed, and that's the way he treated everyone. So I visited David on occasion in Academy Manor. I probably for business. I don't remember exactly like why would I go there this particular time, that particular time, but probably short-related business. We met in those days, no cell phones. I know when I would call him, this is like a memory. When he would call me, he would say, "Hi, Rabbi, how are you?" And I'd call him, he'd answer the phone and say, "Hi, buddy, how are you?" And I don't really know like why it was this way and that way, but it shows the two aspects, if you will, of the relationship that I think were important to him and important to me. On the one hand, he understood, yes, I'm the rabbi. On the other hand, he understood rabbis need friends too, and I'm also his buddy. And therefore, if I'm calling him, he wanted to relate to me as a friend, which of course he always did. Anyway, I come to the nursing home and I come to visit, and he takes me on a tour of the nursing home, and I see how he relates to every single person in the nursing home. They refer to, we used to call them residents. He used to call them guests, was mentioned also this week. People who worked, whatever their job was, people in the next office, they could have been executive, they could be a secretary, they could be a dishwasher, they could be anyone. He related to every single person. They all knew him as David. I don't remember, maybe some did, I don't remember anybody calling him Mr. Solomont. They all called him David. They all related to him as a friend. He related to them as someone who was their equal. And as such, he was able to have an effect on them. And that's the Avram Avinu method. Avram Avinu did not say, "I'm smarter than you, I know more than you," and so on. Avram Avinu would invite people into his home. How would he do it? The doors, the tent was open on all four sides, and Avram Avinu would welcome in anyone. Of course, we know the day, 2 weeks, Parashat Vayera, the three Arabs come. He didn't know they're angels, they look like Arabs. He invites them in, wash your feet because they worship the dust. But after that, just come in, eat. He gave them food, etc., etc. Avram Avinu would invite them in. This classic. They would come to the end of the meal, a delectable meal, delicious meal, and they would come to the end of the meal and they would say, "Thank you very much." And Avram Avinu would say, "Well, don't thank me. Thank the one who created all these things," because Avram Avinu would just want everyone to understand, I'm just here as an emissary between Hashem and you. And that's the way I think David looked upon himself many times. David wanted to see, what can I do for Hashem? What can I do to transform this moment into a moment of blessing? I read an article this week from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. He should be well, for Shlomo. And he talked about what affected his beliefs. And he said the following: whenever something unexpected happens in my life, I ask, what is Hashem trying to tell me? How does he want me to respond? Given that this has happened, how shall I turn this moment into a blessing? And that's the way I think David looked at all the different things that happened in his life. He had some ups, he had some downs, but every single opportunity he had, he looked at as an opportunity, as you could say a challenge, but a challenge is something which can be transformed into an opportunity for success and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This was also mentioned on Tuesday. He wanted to know, when I come to Olam HaEmes, when I come to Olam Haba, what will HaKadosh Baruch Hu think about what I accomplished in my life? Will HaKadosh Baruch Hu think this was good or this was not good? So it's one thing when one is at the end of their life and realizes they're getting old and near the end of their days and so on. It's one thing to think about that. But Chazal tell us, Shuv Yomecha Lefnei every single day of your life, you're supposed to think that way. You never know how long life's going to be. Every single day of your life, you're supposed to think. But what young person, 20, 30, 40 years old, thinks every day in their life, is Hashem going to be proud of what I'm doing today? Am I acting the way that would make Hashem proud? And David certainly did that. It was on his mind, and because it was on his mind, he was successful in doing that. One of the most challenging aspects of any leadership position, whether it's president or nursing home administrator or captain of a ship, is dealing with difficult people. So if you think of them as difficult people, it becomes challenging. If you think of them as just people, like me, Tselem Elokim, I have my issues, they have their issues, and you just look beyond that and over that, so then you can have a successful relationship with anyone. So when Karen and I came to Jamaica States, Adina was, I believe, 11. Sorry if I'm giving away your age. Was 11, and I think Ari was 8. Maybe he was 9. I'm not sure. Okay. What is it? When it came to Lowell, I'm sorry. It came to Lowell. Yes. Okay. Trying to go back further in my mind. My memories. Let's go back further. So Adina was 11. I believe Adina was actually the first bas mitzvah for us in Lowell. And I remember at that time, the school was very, very small. Adina's class was in the classroom, which I guess was really supposed to be the secretary's room. She had 4 in her class, and Ari had 4 in his class. Adina's was 5th and 6th grade, and Ari's was 3rd and 4th grade. And they were, Ari especially, was a challenging student. Adina was a wonderful, always student. Ari, of course, became a great teacher as a result of being a tough student. I think that's part of what comes out of being a tough student. You become a great teacher. But I remember always that both David and Judy, Shlomo be well, I know she said somewhere I saw before, were so proud of every single thing that you accomplished and understood. Sometimes you have struggles, and sometimes you have tremendous successes, but they were extremely proud of what you did at that time, and they're extremely proud of every single thing you became, and they led you through all those years. If you think about the sacrifices that your parents made to send you away to NEAT, to Lubavitch, to Maimonides, to all over, to YU, to all the different places that you went, every single step of that is letting go of their child and recognizing, if I let you go, you'll be able to succeed. I remember something that Rabbi David Shapiro, who lives in Israel now, said many years ago at a Merrimack Valley Hebrew Academy dinner about a pasuk in one of the Shir Hamalos, not the ones we normally say, but he says that a child is like an arrow in the quiver of a bow. And why is a child like the arrow in the quiver of a bow? Because the closer you pull the bow to your heart, the arrow to your heart, the further and straighter it will go. And I think that is really the story of how David and Judy, if you will, took care of Ari and Adina, close to the heart and eager for you to go as far and as straight as you could. And you have been so successful when you went, Ari, of course, to Eretz Yisrael, Adina to Kansas City. You could not have imagined, I'm sure, when you moved to Kansas City, Adina, that you would have ended up being the, I'll say, primary, I'll use the word caretaker, although when they first came, maybe it wasn't caretaker, but certainly primary caretaker of your parents, and adept and wonderful and loving and challenging. And I know at Olmey's Rabbanis is one of the most challenging things that a child can do is to try and take care of parents as they become older. And you certainly have repaid them. Both of you have repaid them in kind. So I want to come back to one thing that I alluded to before, and that is Noach had one challenge, and he failed. He did not understand that he could have succeeded in bringing the world to a better place. if you will, Chazal actually compare Noach or contrast Noach to Moshe Rabbeinu, because Noach was alone in the world. Hashem said, build a teva, and I'm going to save you and destroy the rest of the world. And Noach said, fine. Moshe Rabbeinu was told after the Chet HaEgel, I'm going to destroy the Jewish people and start new people out of you. Moshe Rabbeinu said, no way. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu had the Avraham message. The Avraham message was about tefillah. Not only did Noach build a teva and not try to get anyone to come on, Noach also did not daven for his generation. Avraham Avinu, we know, davened even for the people, the wicked people of Sodom. Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, over and over again davened for the Jewish people. David had a particular, very specific love for davening, and I had the privilege of sitting next to him on the bima, and the privilege of hearing Ari, him trying to sing and sing along. And there are different ways that one can be in tune. And although he was not blessed with your voice, Ari, he was blessed with, I think, the neshama. The neshama came from him to you and to Adina. But when he sang, you could feel the neshama. And if you listen to Shlomo Kabach's Nagunim and listen to him on some of his, I guess they were records in those days, maybe they're not DVDs, I don't know, or plugins or streaming. But if you listen to Shlomo Kabach, he sang on key, but he did not have a very good voice. You could listen. He was hoarse. It was not a very good voice. It didn't make a difference, but it was Hanashama Lach V'Aguf Shalach. It was all from the heart. And David, in addition to what he did, also davened well. Many times people will ask great rabbis, how is it that I was successful in raising my children to be the way they are? And he said, somebody davened very well. Now you have generations of people who probably davened well, because I knew some of the prior generations as well. But I know David certainly davened very well, maybe not voice-wise, but neshama-wise, mouth to mouth, so to speak, straight to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to come back to the Medrash, the Gemara I started with. No, before I do that, I have a couple of comments I wrote down that I don't want to forget about. So before I come to the end, so I pointed out David was president. So I still remember the first day that I was rabbi in Lowell. Myers, Zaidi, came over to me and said, Rabbi, whatever you do the first year, if you make any mistakes, I'm going to tell them I told you to do it. Great presidential message. And I told my president when I left Jamaica States and the rabbi came, I told that to the president. I said, this was a gift. Okay, now David didn't say it to me when he became president, but he certainly did it. Meaning, sometimes there are things which are not popular which the rabbi has to do. And if the rabbi is on his own, it's much more difficult. And if the rabbi has the support of the president, even if the president could agree or disagree, and I think 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, we agreed, but David always was there to advise, to protect, to be really a partner, many times privately behind the scenes. He was a tremendous partner, I pointed out before, a tremendous friend as well. I want to go back to the Medrash that I started with, the Gemara in Bava Basra. So Gemara says, when Avram Avinu passed away, the nations of the world stood in a row, and they said, Oy la'olam she'avad manhigo. Woe unto the world that has lost its manhig, its leader. Woe unto the ship, she'avda karbanita, which has lost its captain. Says the Maharsha, commentary on the Gemara, on the Agadah of the Gemara, what does it mean, manhigo? So the pshat is that Avram Avinu was the manhig, he was the leader of the world. He was also captain of the ship, meaning he led the world in philosophy, and he guided the world in the abstract, and also in the concrete. He was the one making sure the ship would go in the right direction, and he was, if you will, trying to schlep the whole world behind him or push them ahead of him towards God. Says the Maharsha, however, the following: Oy la'olam, woe unto the world, habrios avad mehem hamoreh lohem es al manhigo shel olam. Not we lost Avram Avinu the manhig, we lost Avram Avinu who demonstrated to us every day that there is a manhig, that Hashem runs the world. Sheyesh lo olam manhig, ve'en olam noheg min hago. The world does not just go by itself, but rather there is a leader of the world, there's somebody who directs the world, Kadosh Baruch Hu directs the world. I can't ignore the obvious. We're all in Zoom. We're all in many different places. But even if we all lived next door, we'd still be on Zoom because so much of going on in communities is being done on Zoom because of COVID. Hashem brought COVID. Hashem will take COVID away. Yes, it is true. There are scientists that say, wear a mask, and I wear a mask, and I daven mostly outside. And when I daven inside, I'm in a separate room, which has distancing and very well set up. When it's not set up the way I want, I daven outside. This morning I davened at home because it was raining. I'm not davening outside, and so on. This is all Hashem's will. We don't understand any part of Hashem's will, but we do understand because we see people who are driven by trying to accomplish Hashem's will. Because Avram Avinu lived his life of understanding. I have an isayon. I have a challenge. I'm going to accomplish I'm going to overcome the challenge. Another nisayon, 10 nisyonos. Avram Avinu proved to whom that he could overcome these nisyonos. Hashem knew. Hashem wanted Avraham to see, you know yourself, you can overcome a challenge, a small one, a bigger one, a bigger one. And by doing that, you demonstrate to the world there is a manhig, somebody who leads the world, and the world is never left without a manhig. However, the world was left when Abraham died without someone every day demonstrating, remember, there's a manhig. So you are gifted, we are gifted to be able to see David live his life as one who understood the world is run by a manhig. And we can go back and think of the many, many interactions we had with him over all the years that we knew him, whether it was a sister, a sibling, a child, a relative, a friend, a wife. All of those interactions we have, we're able to see and learn how it is that he expressed to us through his actions, not just through his words, through his actions, there is a manhig running the world. But Od Safdu, says the Marsha, furthermore, they eulogize his following. B'ma'alos midosav, on the high level of his midos, of his character. Oilo l'sfina she'avda kavanita, she'olam hazeh domeh l'sfina kiyadua. This world is like a ship. Kamo she'oilo l'sfina she'avda kavanita, hamadricha derech yishar shlo tikal. Just like there's a captain of the ship who makes sure the ship goes in the right direction. Woe unto the world who has lost Avram Avinu, who directed us every day with their words, with their advice, with their activities of how to have proper midos. If we asked him or didn't ask him, he still would demonstrate it. I say this to Ari and Adina. My father's gone since 1992. It's a long time, 28 years. But I say this very often. I listen to him more now than I did when he was alive. Because he's alive, he would say something and I would think about it and I would agree or disagree. And I might think, well, maybe I know better. And then as I grew older and he was gone, I listened to him because I always hear him in the background, what he's saying, what he is thinking, how would he be acting, how would he be reacting. So Adina and Ari and Sarah Beth and Norman, all the grandchildren, you should be Zocha. You were Zocha to have a wonderful father and grandfather, and Judy to have a wonderful husband, and Harriet and Bob to have a wonderful brother and brother-in-law. You were Zocha, and we can still maintain all those memories and be inspired by who he was. It's puzzling to me that this Gemara says they all stood in a shura, and this is supposed to be consolation, comforting. We say, Mokum Menachem. Is this comforting? So yes, it's comforting. Who's it comforting for? So I think it's not comforting only for the people who were missing Avram Avinu. It's comforting for us to know we still remember what Avram Avinu did. We still are inspired by what Avram Avinu did. we are still inspired by the one who runs the world and by the one who helps direct the ship to give us the right midos, to put us in the right direction, to take us through, if you will, sometimes the rocky waters. So we are also privileged when we think about that today, that we had a wonderful captain, we had a wonderful friend, we had a wonderful manhig, we had a wonderful kavanita. For me, most of all, a wonderful friend. I will miss him dearly as a friend. I didn't get to speak to him over the times, but still the memories are solid, and I get to see some of the children, some of the time. Baruch Hashem, we've been zocher to share simchas. I was able to see them not so recently at the last Khan wedding, but we should be zocher, all of us, to share in Besoros Tova Simcha. Everybody should stay well, and I will say on behalf of myself to the Avelim, Hamokom and Achem Eschem, Besoros Shavasim Yerushalayim, Hashem should comfort you among those who mourn for Zion, Jerusalem. We should all be zocher. The Beis Hamikdash should be rebuilt. We'll be reunited in Yerushalayim, and all, if you will, Moch Hashem, Dilma Melech Panim, there will be no more passing in death. We'll all be reunited with all those who are passed from this world in Yemos Mashiach, Tchias HaMesim, and we'll celebrate together in Yerushalayim in the Beis Hamikdash. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for listening. If anybody wants, I should have said this at the beginning, if you want to unmute and comment in the middle, you can. If you want to comment now, you can.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hochberg. We miss you very much. Miss you, and you know, the relationship that you had with my father, our father, and you know, it says Aseh lecha rab u'knei lecha chaver. And sometimes we're privileged to have both, and you were that to our family and everyone in the community. You know, I still remember when you would speak from the Bim and Lowell. I remember you used to say, you know, when you would speak to somebody to bar mitzvah, you would say, I'm gonna speak to the bar mitzvah boy, and if everybody else wants to listen, you know, they can listen. And also you would always say at the end of every speech, you know, on behalf of myself and my lovely wife Karen. And so we feel so honored that we've been able to maintain that relationship over, you know, so many decades. Thank you for sharing the words. You really captured really the essence of. I'm sure people here that knew my father at different stages when he was a kid, as a sibling, as an uncle, and as a friend, as a friend of our friends. Also, it's really appreciate putting a lot of his life in context for us, and we will, you know, he will stay the manig. He will stay the manig, and it's a great image and a great lesson. And wanted to thank you.
Well, you're precious. All of you are precious to Karen and myself, and we're very proud of you. I know your parents are very proud of you. Your father and all MS is even prouder of you now, and your mom also certainly. And we should be so, as I said, to share, continue to share nachas from each other.
Yeah. We do get a lot of nachas from you and Adina and your kids. It's so I had a picture of you in your first home in Israel with the 4 kids around you that was published in one of the magazines. I had that on my desk forever. A beautiful, beautiful picture. Now your kids have kids, so it's gives us a lot of nachas. They should all be well.
Anybody wants to unmute themselves, and they're welcome to do so. And nice. I can tell you, I know everybody sat in shul.
I sat next to Karen.
I have to tell you one story. I remember when I was first expecting Mira, and I was pregnant, and my husband walked into the class, before he got into the classroom, you and Yisrael, Stephen Botkins, who's on also, were talking to each other. And you said, my mom told me that the rabbi's wife's going to have a baby. Do you think he knows? But it's a secret. Do you think anyone told him? Yeah, probably.
Could be.
I was checking to make sure that Stephen, yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much. Karen and Rabbi, you've always been with our family for good times, not good times, but you've always been there. And thank you.
It's Hashem.
Just have more good times.
I have a magnet on my refrigerator. It's a tree with leaves of different colors, and it says it takes a long time to grow an old friend. That's what it's
true.
about, old friends.
Very
They're
true.
always friends. Yeah, thank God.
I want to share one story about the rabbi, because I don't know if the rabbi ever knew this, but
Should I stay on?
what?
Careful,
It's a-
Ari, careful.
It's a brief story. When I was learning for my bar mitzvah, which is Parshas Vayera, which is my Hebrew birthday is next Shabbat, or this upcoming Shabbat. I won't say how old I am because I really don't want to make the rabbi feel old. But
You want me to tell everybody how old you are? 1 year older than me.
and I used to go to the rabbi's house for my bar mitzvah lessons on Shabbat afternoon. But before I would go to the rabbi's house for my bar mitzvah lessons, I would usually go either to the Libos or to the Steeples, and we'd play tackle football outside. And the rabbi never really bothered me about those things in those days. And he and I as the rabbi alluded to, so I might have been a challenging student, and I really hadn't prepared for what I was supposed to do with the rabbi that week. And I showed up at the rabbi's house, and I could not get through whatever I was supposed to get through, and I started to cry. And I'm still doing that. But so Rabbi, you put your arm around me and you said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Well, I was playing and I got hit in the head with the football and I forgot everything." And you said, "Yeah, that can happen." I've used that excuse throughout my life whenever I can't remember anything.
Then you said, Hochberg said it could happen, right?
Right. It can happen. Yeah, we were very kind. And I tried to find the Haftorah book where you wrote on the bottom, when they closed the shul, I tried to get a hold of the Haftorah book where you wrote concentrate, concentrate, concentrate.
I remember that same book.
I'm gonna
Did it
shout
help?
out and say, I'm Dov, son and grandson of David. I just want to say, on behalf of my siblings, that we have a lot of akarat hatov to you, because I always hear stories of you from my father, and I thank you very, very much for all of your guidance and helping my father get to where he is. I mean, at least back then, setting him on that straight arrow way. So thank you very much.
A beautiful picture that I also keep, and it's a picture of Ari with you, Dove. You were less than a week old, and he put you. We were in my apartment in Lowell, and he had a big Gemara open. I don't know if you have that picture, Ari, of you sitting there. You're less than a week, and you're sitting there with this big open Gemara in front of you. So it's
That's
one
the night before the bris.
It was the night before Chris.
Night before Chris, yeah.
You came over to learn with him. The
It was
night
like
before
yesterday.
Chris.
It's like yesterday.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a good chavruta. That was good.
Okay, well, now we're up to the second line. We got to continue.
Yeah.
have a lot more more muscles now, Dove.
Me? I'm wearing the wrong shirt.
So nice.
you.
Big bracha.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Sir Rabbi Rakoff, nice to see you, Rabbi Rakoff.
All right.
Mhm.
From Holliswood to Kansas City to where? Cleveland, where are you now?
We're in Denver.
Denver, okay.
There's snow on the ground, so we're still with you in Kansas, Kansas people. We heard you have snow too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to shovel it now because you can't go outside anyway. No shoveling, right?
Really snowing in Kansas City?
No, in Denver.
Both,
And Kansas right now.
both places.
Oh, Kansas too. Wow.
Kansas City, it's snowing?
Snowed all Kansas today. all
Never
day.
snowed in Lowell.
Never.
We're in Lowell, right?
Rabbi Rocco, please tell Mark Brooks that we're waiting for his return to Yerushalayim.
Oh, wait, where did that come from? Is that from Jay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
We had the pleasure of their sabbatical in our shul at Pinsker.
Very nice.
Send them special regards, please.
Will do.
Yeah, Chicago by Hochberg, it was beautiful. Thank you so
very
much.
Okay, we should share simchas. Everybody should stay well and follow the rules. I would
Right.
say it's amazing how many rules we're able to follow. We should follow the rules of health also.
Yeah.
Right.
The SARS Tovos. We should have Nachama, Ari, Dina, and Judy.
Malcolm Menachem Eschem Yisrael Avli to Yerushalayim.
See on Yerushalayim. Have a safe trip back to Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you.
Take care.
Lila,
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Hochberg, Karen, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Well,
Good night.
Harriet still it will be up for a few more hours. So
Yeah, Jay and I are in touch when he gets up for early minion and I'm still awake, so that's how we get our chats in.
Okay, wow.
Actually, Joe
Chicago.
is bad. We're in the same time zone. And we still talk at 2 o'clock in the morning, but by way of chat.
Night, everybody.
final last words.
What?